Yes, hello everyone, Hitesh here. Today we're going to talk about the movie 300. This is the story of a warrior who never bowed his knee and never lowered his head, of a king who, to save his people, took a handful of soldiers and stood against millions, of a queen who shamed herself to save her king. This tale is full of truth, pain, and love, and with my voice you will feel every beat of it. I'll bring each scene, each line, to life so vividly that you'll feel like you're living the story through your own eyes. The main storyline opens on several Spartans carrying a small child because in Sparta, the law said that malformed or mentally disabled infants were left to die. Only those born to be warriors, those willing to die for their country, their people, and their honor, were kept. We meet our lead, Leonidas, at 7 years old. In Sparta, a child is taken from his mother at 7 to begin the brutal, heart-hardening training. The more sweat you shed in practice, the less blood you'll spill in battle. They were forged through relentless beating until neither spiritual power, nor beast, nor enemy could touch them. After 3 years of this training, at age 10 Leonidas is left alone one cold, black night in the forest as his final trial. There's a starving wolf there with eyes burning like embers, but Leonidas knows neither fear nor a wish to die, only a burning resolve. When the wolf attacks, Leonidas drives his spear through its mouth and into the beast's throat. When he returns to Sparta, his bravery wins him a place among the city's leaders and eventually the crown. Time moves on. Leonidas is married and now has a son of his own who is 7 years old when a messenger arrives from Persia. The envoy, speaking on behalf of King Xerxes, wants to negotiate. Leonidas meets him and asks plainly why Persia has come so far. The messenger answers with 2 words, land and water. Leonidas's wife reacts with fury. The envoy responds crudely, saying women have no place among men, and Leonidas pulls his wife aside to warn her that her boldness could cost her dearly. The Persian envoy then reveals his master's threat. Xerxes commands legions so vast that their arrows could blot out the sun. He offers submission. Sparta would yield land and water and bow to Xerxes, and in return Xerxes would supposedly enrich and advance Sparta. Leonidas is outraged. He kicks the envoy into a deep cistern because the envoy had the audacity to display the severed skulls of defeated kings at Sparta's threshold and to insult Leonidas's wife. War has begun between Leonidas and Xerxes, but Sparta has a law: no war can be won without the blessing of the priests. Following their customs, Leonidas goes to the priests, wrinkled, hypocritical men who live like frauds, and lays out the strategy. He will lure Xerxes' massive army into narrow passes and slaughter them where numbers mean nothing. The priests ask what they will receive in return for their blessing. Leonidas offers them great quantities of gold, but the priests say they must consult the oracle. In Sparta, that corrupt priesthood uses young women as a means to speak with the gods, and the story takes a darker turn as these sacred practices and the city's institutions reveal themselves to be imperfect, hungry for wealth and influence, even as Leonidas prepares to lead a glorious, almost impossible stand that will define honor and sacrifice for generations to come. The priests kept the young women for themselves, claiming they could quench their spiritual thirst through them. To seek victory in this war, Leonidas approached them with a beautiful woman, but her beauty became a curse. Those deceitful priests, pretending to speak to the gods, enslaved her for their own desires. When Leonidas asked them about his chances of victory, they told him it was the time of the Carneia festival, the month of August, when Sparta celebrated and avoided war. You cannot fight now, they said. This enraged Leonidas, because for him, his people, his land, and his freedom mattered more than the hypocritical words of corrupt priests. He could not sacrifice his honor for their cowardice. So, the next day, he gathered Sparta's 300 finest and bravest warriors and set out to face an army of millions. As they marched, the politician Theron and other council members confronted him, saying, "When the priests have forbidden battle, why do you still go to war?" Leonidas calmly replied, "I am not going to war. I'm simply taking a stroll toward the north, and these 300 men are just my bodyguards. As for the Spartan army," he said, "they remain in Sparta." The truth was, Theron had already sold his loyalty to Xerxes. He had bribed the priests with gold and promises of beautiful women so that Leonidas would be denied full support. But no amount of deceit could weaken Leonidas's resolve. His wife and young son came to bid him farewell. Before leaving, Leonidas told his wife to take care of their people. She placed her necklace around his neck and said, "Return victorious," because she believed in him, believed that this was the man before whom enemies trembled. After a heavy, emotional farewell, Leonidas and his 300 warriors marched toward destiny. On the road, they encountered around 200 Arcadians who joined them, saying they too wanted to fight against Xerxes. But they doubted whether 300 Spartans could truly face such massive armies. Leonidas asked some of them what they did for a living. One said he was a blacksmith, another a sculptor, another a farmer. Then Leonidas turned to his own men and asked, "Spartans, what is your profession?" And in a thunderous unified roar they shouted, "We are warriors." That moment made it clear who was born to fight and die for honor. Watching from afar was a hunchbacked man, an outcast who longed to be part of the Spartan army. Leonidas noticed him but took no action. As the warriors advanced, they reached a ruined city burned to ashes, filled with bodies piled high. A small boy stumbled toward Leonidas and collapsed in his arms. Before dying, he whispered that monsters had come, creatures darker than shadows, and slaughtered everyone. The Arcadians panicked, saying, "They are invincible. No one can defeat them." But Leonidas replied firmly, "That decision will be made by the blades of Spartans." Soon, they spotted Xerxes' massive army approaching through the mountain pass. Even though the Persians had numbers beyond counting, the gods themselves seemed to favor the Spartans. A storm had destroyed many of Xerxes' ships, drowning thousands before the battle even began. The Spartans rejoiced, but Leonidas stood silent, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The next day, a small advance unit of Persians arrived and ordered Leonidas to retreat. But the Spartan king had already slaughtered many of their soldiers and displayed their bodies as a warning. The Persian commander shouted, "You are but a handful of men. You cannot face Xerxes' endless legions. Bow before him now and save your women and children from slavery." Leonidas responded with fury, cutting off the commander's hand and sending him back in disgrace. Then came wave after wave of Persian troops, thousands charging into the narrow mountain pass known as the Gates of Hell. The Spartans held their ground, using their shields to form an unbreakable wall while spears thrust forward, cutting down enemy after enemy. Their formation, discipline, and unity turned the narrow terrain into a slaughterhouse. They fought with the precision of gods and the fury of lions, proving that courage and strategy could defy any empire. What truly elevated this legendary tale on screen was the masterful voice dubbing, especially the powerful tones of Rajesh Khattar, known as the voice behind Iron Man and many Hollywood legends. The film's color grading, CGI, VFX, and breathtaking graphics made every frame look like a moving painting of valor, sacrifice, and immortality. The immortal glory of the 300 Spartans. The sight was enough to make anyone's spine tingle. Leonidas cut through the enemy ranks without pause, picking them off one by one, and news of his ferocity reached Xerxes himself, who came forward with a personal offer. He introduced himself as the god king of Persia and promised Leonidas wealth, titles, and the command of his armies if the Spartan would kneel and join him. In return, Xerxes demanded Sparta's land and water. Leonidas refused, offended by both the insult and the arrogance, and Xerxes enraged unleashed his deadliest units, monstrous, towering warriors whose strength equaled 10 men each. Still, Leonidas' blade made short work of them. After sundown no battles were fought, and it was then that Hephaestion, the hunchbacked outcast who had shadowed Leonidas for years, finally revealed himself. He explained that he, too, was Spartan. His mother had refused to discard him as an infant, so she fled Sparta with him and taught him to fight. His spear and battered armor were gifts from his parents. When Leonidas asked Hephaestion to lift his shield, the man could not. His deformity made the heavy shield impossible to raise, and Leonidas, bound to the brutal discipline of Spartan phalanx warfare where one weak shield could doom the whole line, reluctantly told him he could not fight as a hoplite. Hephaestion begged and pleaded to join the battle, swearing he'd die for Sparta, and Leonidas offered him other uses, clearing corpses, bringing water to the wounded, helping where needed. But bitterness and humiliation won out. Hephaestion betrayed Leonidas, sneaking to Xerxes and revealing the Spartans' hidden passes and positions. Xerxes rewarded him with women, gold, indulgence, and a Persian cloak Hephaestion had turned. As the campaign continued, Xerxes resorted to sorcery and bombs, sending waves of magical units and Asian war mages against Sparta. In one brutal exchange Leonidas' captain lost his son, and the captain's grief was so fierce that 3